You ever feel like no matter how hard you work, life just keeps getting more expensive? Your rent is higher, groceries cost more, and somehow your paycheck still feels the same? If that sounds familiar, you're not imagining things. The middle class is being squeezed from every direction. Prices are rising, but incomes aren't keeping up, and the gap between the two is getting bigger every year. Brace for impact. Look, the problem isn't that people suddenly forgot how to work hard. The real issue is that the financial game has quietly changed. The rules that helped the middle class build wealth for decades are slowly disappearing, and most people didn't even notice when it started happening. Let's start with housing. For decades, buying a home was the backbone of middle-class wealth. You bought a house, you paid it off over time, and eventually that house became a huge part of your net worth. Home prices have exploded. Meanwhile, wages barely moved. That gap is where the pressure starts. But housing is just the beginning. That IT hits groceries, that IT hits healthcare, it hits education, and eventually it hits almost every part of daily life. So the question becomes, what happens next? To understand what's happening, we need to talk about assets. Because income alone doesn't build wealth. Assets build wealth. Assets are things that make money for you while you sleep, while you work, while you live your life. But here's the problem. The wealthy own assets. The middle class mostly owns income, and those two things behave very differently over time. Income grows slowly. Assets compound. That difference changes everything. Because over time, assets grow faster than salaries, which means people who own assets pull further ahead. And people who rely only on income fall behind. That's the hidden engine behind the growing wealth gap. And it's accelerating faster than most people realize.
Now here's where things start getting really. Inflation doesn't hurt everyone equally. In fact, it often helps people who own assets, because when prices rise, assets often rise with them, but wages usually rise much slower, which means the gap keeps growing, and over time, that difference compounds. The wealthy get wealthier. And the middle class works harder just to stay in place. But inflation isn't the only pressure. Debt plays a huge role too. Not all debt is bad. Some debt actually helps people build wealth, like mortgages that help people buy property, or loans that help businesses grow. But the middle class often carries a different kind of debt: credit card debt, high-interest loans, and those can quietly drain wealth for years. But the biggest trap for the middle class isn't just inflation or debt, it's lifestyle inflation. Every time income increases, spending tends to increase with it. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, more expensive vacations. None of those things are bad by themselves, but together they create a problem, because lifestyle upgrades usually happen faster than asset building, which means income rises but wealth doesn't. This is why some people earn six figures but still feel financially stressed. Because income alone doesn't solve the problem, ownership does. Ownership of assets, things that grow even when you're not working. That's how wealth actually compounds. And that's the system most people never see. But here's the good news: this situation isn't hopeless, because the same system squeezing the middle class is the same system that rewards asset owners, which means the real question becomes, how do you start owning assets? The answer isn't complicated, but it does require discipline. Step 1. Spend less than you earn. That gap is where investing begins. Step 2. Invest consistently, not once, not when the market feels exciting, but every month. Step 3. Give those investments time, because compound growth needs patience. And patience is the advantage most people underestimate. Now imagine doing all three steps consistently: spending less than you earn, investing consistently, giving your money time to grow. Here's the thing: most people never reach financial freedom because they focus on income alone, and ignore the assets that quietly build wealth. That's why the middle class is being squeezed. But here's the opportunity: you can start building wealth quietly. Month after month. It doesn't require luck, or a lottery winning salary, just discipline, patience, and the right assets. The same system that rewards the wealthy is available to you too. You just need to start, and keep going, no matter how slow it feels, because over time, small consistent actions multiply, and eventually, you reach financial freedom. Not overnight, but it works. Look, if you take nothing else from this video, remember this: income makes you feel rich, but assets make you rich. And right now, the gap between those two is growing faster than ever, which means the people who understand this early are the ones who stay ahead, and the ones who don't fall further behind every year, so the choice is yours. Stay on the same path or start building assets today, because the system isn't changing anytime soon, but your strategy can. If this video helped you see what's really happening, share it with someone who needs to understand this, and if you want to stay ahead financially, hit the like button and subscribe, because the people who understand money early are the ones who win long term. I'll see you in the next video.